What have you come to learn about people pleasing, people pleasers, where it comes from?
Yeah, so, often it makes sense. Often these things feel confusing until you hear someone's story, and then it makes complete sense. And I've had so many of these moments with people in the room where, they come in and think, you're just not going to understand this. This is just bizarre and complex, and I don't get it. And then you spend a decent amount of time going through someone's story, and then you get to this lovely point where you kind of say to each other, of course it is this way. How could it not be, given everything that's happened? And, there isn't sort of one story or one scenario that always leads to people pleasing. There are lots of different ones. But I think it's important to distinguish that people pleasing isn't being a nice person. It's so much more than that. It's being absolutely vigilant to how other people feel and placing that as your absolute priority over and above your own well-being, your own health, anything. So, it's just terrifying, the thought of displeasing someone else or experiencing their disapproval or them not liking you or rejecting you. And so, I've seen people who live in turmoil trying to please everybody around them and keep them pleased, which is not sustainable. And so it creates chaos where, you're constantly chasing your tail, and it gives other people a lot of power over you. So you can end up in relationships that are sort of exploitative or just not healthy for you. Yeah, so I think it's one of those things that's sort of banded around. And it's something that a lot of us kind of do in bits and bobs, kind of like, yeah, sometimes I'm like that, or in certain situations I'm like that. And some people spend their lives really, really struggling with it.
The desire for us to take something we do a little bit and turn it into a label that describes our entire personality is quite strong. The pathologization of sort of normal emotions in that way, which is odd, right? Because both me and you are fans of sort of emotionally informed therapy and people understanding their emotions. I also think it's very interesting. I think it's one of the most interesting things that you can do. And yet, I imagine that you have a similar problem to me as the overuse of therapy speak online to describe, like, this person wasn't mean to me, they were narcissistic, or they caused me trauma. I'm not sad, I'm depressed. And the sort of the straying over into, you crossed a boundary, that's one of my bound, et cetera, et cetera. So people, a lot of the time, will say yes to things when they mean to say no, or they want to say no. They want to become firmer at being able to disappoint those around them. How can they become better at that?
I think is one of the most important skills anyone will ever learn, actually, because you put yourself at risk if you can't say no when you need to, or you can't hold boundaries, and there's that people-pleasing tendency. So if everything is about everybody else and what they want from you, and that's where it's not the same as being a nice person. So, if everybody else's needs and wishes and desires come first, and you don't have the ability to put a stop to that when it doesn't fit, then you'll end up doing things that you regret and don't fit with your values, or that don't feel like you're being a nice person, but it's because somebody else has more power over your behavior than you do. So I think assertiveness skills are a big part of what's taught in therapy, actually. Teaching people to manage difficult people and people who perhaps have more power in a relationship, or it kind of sounds easy to be able to say no, and it's not, because it's always packed out with lots of emotion and complex dynamics between two people, and so it can be really difficult, but it's absolutely learnable. And so that's where it's important to remember that even if you've had a habit for life of putting everybody else first and being the I don't mind, I'm fine, whatever you think type person, that you can begin to change, but it's often about learning specific skills. And
where do you start? What are the skills?
So a lot of it is practice in light-hearted ways. We talked about the sort of acting opposite to urges, using polos, and kind of, situations that aren't necessarily the most emotive, the most difficult for you. You kind of grade situations. You could even make a list, to be fair. So you can make a list of the different situations where it's difficult to be assertive or state your own needs, and you take the easiest one. And you start with that, and you practice, and you have a go, and then you come back and you see how it went, what went well, what would, and so I was working with someone on dealing with those kind of assertiveness skills, or needing to state your own needs in a workplace, and going home on time or taking a holiday, those sorts of things. And so we started with something really that felt the easiest. And then we just assessed it. So, stress test things and then learn from it. Actually, the anticipatory anxiety about it was much worse than actually the awkward moment of saying what I needed to say. And their reaction was not as bad as I thought it would be. I had all that fear and discomfort, but that died down as soon as the moment was over. And then actually I got what I needed, and the situation was better than it would have been. And I'm not living in resentment. So when you start small, you get these small victories that give you that momentum and give you that sort of drive to move forward and go for the next challenge. But you can't expect to suddenly go, right, from now on, I'm going to be boundaried and assertive and strong and
become an overnight hard ass.
yeah, right. It's just not going to happen. You have to do these things gradually and start with the easiest thing. Something that almost feels a bit silly, that's so easy. It's almost a bit kind of, really? Am I starting here? Yep. But then you get that little easy victory, and then you move on to the next one, which is a little bit more difficult, and so on.
That anticipatory anxiety thing is so funny, because you're right. It's almost always your ability to turn the future situation into a nightmare is significantly better than it almost ever is. And the stupid thing is that all of the nightmares that you genuinely encounter in the real world are ones that you probably didn't see coming. So you go, right, okay, so I have this unbelievable ability to predict things that aren't problems and not predict things that are going to be massive issues. Okay, brilliant, thanks. Amazing way that our brains are set up. But yeah, I think that that's right. And again, as a slowly rehabilitating people pleaser, that's a way that I found to be better as well. To learn to be able to make demands of other people, to not subjugate my needs, or believe that I don't have needs, or think that it's noble to not have needs, to put somebody else ahead of me. Oh, this is like a sort of a sacrificial type. It's this sort of odd, like emotional puritanism, where you think if I feel bad but someone else feels good, net, that means that it's good. You go, what if you could both feel good, but you just need to sort of make a demand?
Yeah, so true. And often when you feel like you're being a nice person because you're making them feel good, actually sometimes what you're doing is just appeasing them, and you're just scared of their emotional reaction or their disapproval, and it's it's motivated by fear of what their reaction might be, rather than your own values around what should happen in that situation.
It's also not very trustworthy. If somebody can't trust your no, it's very difficult to trust your yes. And, you hinted at if you don't have any choice, it's not particularly virtuous. You don't even feel good about doing the virtuous thing because you didn't have any other option.
Yeah.
You didn't choose to be nice to this person. You simply couldn't be bad.
Yeah.
And I wrote about this week, actually, that a friend of mine a few months ago, me and him had a sort of well-meaning debate, but I was worried that I'd upset him. So I rang him a little bit afterwards, and I was like, hey man, I just wanted to sort of check in and make sure that you're all right. He's like, yeah, of course. Like, of course it was. It was totally fine. And then he heard me start to chastise myself for going, see, this is my people-pleasing nature coming out. This is me. I had to check in. He's like, whoa, hang on a second. The reason that I love you as a friend, for one of the big reasons, is because you decided to put me first, even in this situation, even the one that was neutral, the fact that you did reach out and care. He's like, be careful pathologizing something which is actually a really virtuous part of who you are. Yeah. And I'm like, right, okay. So doing the thing was good. It's a part of my nature that my friends are glad that I have.
Yeah.
But by not really, but by being compelled to do it as opposed to choosing to do it, that does kind of derogate some of the virtue that's behind it. So I was like, right, okay, so am I supposed to purposefully try and get rid of that? So briefly make myself a worse friend to then relearn it again consciously so that I can finally get back to the place that I was in the beginning. I'm like, that seems unnecessarily effortful. Like to go around this whole loop to end up at the place that I started again, but this time it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
think this line between virtue from compulsions and virtue from choices, and then this odd sense that we need to deprogram. It's like, right, okay, so if it's hard to do, does that make it more virtuous? Like, it's in my nature. Like, that's just me speaking forward. What a lovely way to be. Would you rather be somebody that's mean and you have to work hard to do that thing? Would that make you a better person? If you were good, but you were naturally mean? I'm sure I'd be able to find a way to castigate myself and whip myself into submission, say, well, I mean, you know that you did the thing, but you didn't feel like doing the thing. So that's, the human desire to minimize our sort of good points is robust, to say the least.
Yeah, and like you say, it's all about the choice, and that you clearly have an awareness of it now, and so if you found yourself in a situation where it was really detrimental to you and you knew that you probably should say something different, but you'd said X because of that people-pleasing tendency, then you'd be in a better position to be able to choose something different because you have that awareness. And that's the key, isn't it? Is it's okay to have that as a trait and that sort of tendency, because if you're aware of it, then when it becomes troublesome, you stand a chance at doing something different. It doesn't mean you have to kind of eradicate everything and, clean slate and start again. You can, and that's the thing, a lot of stuff now is about, like you say, pathologizing everything and as if it's something that's wrong with us. And actually those tendencies can also be really lovable parts of us and things that other people appreciate about us or that we appreciate about ourselves, but that don't always work in every context.
Trust really is everything when it comes to supplements. A lot of brands may say they're top quality, but few can actually prove it, which is why I partnered with Momentous. They make the highest quality supplements on the planet. 3 of the products that I use to support my brain, body, and sleep every day are omega-3s, creatine, and magnesium L-threonate. Honestly, I try and limit the number of supplements that I rely on, but when I take these consistently, they have a massive impact on my cognitive performance, my strength, and my sleep. Momentous are literally unparalleled when it comes to rigorous third-party testing. What you read on the label is what's in the product and absolutely nothing else. Best of all, they have a 30-day money-back guarantee, so you can buy it and try it for 29 days, and if you do not love it, they will give you your money back. Plus, they ship internationally. Right now, you can get 20% off everything site-wide, plus that 30-day money-back guarantee by going to the link in the description below or heading to livemomentous.com/modernwisdom and using the code modernwisdom at checkout. That's livemomentous.com/modernwisdom and modernwisdom at checkout. Thank you very much for tuning in. If you enjoyed that clip, you will love the full-length conversation with Dr. Julie right here. Go on, press it.